Hi, everybody. Today's Tuesday, December 10th, 2024. I'm Jeffrey Morgan, and this is a talk I host twice a week to discuss my experiences on the path of soul transcendence. This offering is brought to you by the movement of spiritual inner awareness with the encouragement and support of my friend John Morton, who holds the mystical traveler consciousness, which is the spiritual consciousness that allows us to do the work that we're doing here today. If you're new to the call, the format is simple. We're going to start by calling ourselves forward into the light, which is calling our awareness forward into the light of God that's already present. And then we're going to chant three Anai hues. Hue is an ancient name for God, and Anai invokes a quality of empathy and compassion. Then we're going to play a video clip from my teacher, John Roger, and then I'm going to do a reading from Kabir, and then we can talk about whatever you would like. So, Ron Holnick, please take us away, calling us forward into the light.
My honor. Lord God of all creation, we come before you this evening filled with the loving that stems down from above where all is well. We stand forward in that loving, drinking it in, realizing that is our very essence. There is nothing to earn. There is nowhere to go. There is only to own it and to be it. And for this time together, Lord, we give our thanks. So be it.
Be a good Samaritan to yourself. I think that's what Jesus Christ was, a good Samaritan to himself. And by doing that, everyone who comes into that idea gets nurtured, gets uplifted, gets reborn, if you will, certainly rejuvenated, certainly regenerated. And then when you die, you don't go anywhere except where you are, and you just ascend into the higher consciousness. That's how that's done. You don't have to die and go searching through a wilderness. Find it while you're alive. Do that. And then you'll find out that Christ has risen. Berush B'Shem.
Right. This is a poem from Kabir called The Fruit of the Tree. No longer am I the man I used to be, for I plucked the fruit of this precious tree of life. As the river flows down the hills and becomes one with the sea, so has this weaver's love flowed to become one with the Lord of love. Go deeper and deeper in meditation to reach the seabed of consciousness. Through the blessing of my teacher, I have passed beyond the land of death. Says Kabir, listen to me, friends, and cast away all your doubts. Make your faith unshakable in the Lord and pass beyond the land of death. Okay, what would you all like to talk about today? Hi, Carla.
There we go. Hi. Um, my question is about how I think I'm looking for a deeper level of not getting sucked into drama, particularly at work. Um, let's see. So when something goes wrong, the inclination is for the head of the department to assume that we've done something wrong and gets very upset without even having all the facts yet. And I'm kind of used to it. And I can say, okay, this is ridiculous. Just figure it out and, everything will calm down. But what I noticed is this evening, when I got the information late this afternoon, it just keeps going through my head like, this is ridiculous. I don't know why they do that. Why? And I just like, that's not the only thing. Like, I want to be able to let go of stuff more quickly. It's not healthy. I mean, I can actually feel myself like shutting down when I get in that space. And I just don't know how to stop ruminating about stuff and getting upset about it. I don't know if, if you can fix that.
I don't know if I can fix that, but I could share about my experience with that.
Thank you.
Um, so I have a fun mind as well, and when certain things happen, the injustice of it all will sort of stick in my head and continue to play back and forth as if somehow banging my head against that particular problem will solve it. And it never seems to. What often does solve it is seeing the truth about the situation, like what's really going on, and it's usually a deeper truth. So, for example, understanding if you have the accusation that's going on or something, it may not even be your karma. It may be just something that you're holding for or supporting that's a departmental or systems level karma that just needs to be expressed. But understanding that or seeing that in a way that allows you to understand that it's taken care of, that you don't have to fix it. It's just that's the way the system was set up. And you can see this oftentimes in large human systems. There is a boss who's tyrannical, and then all of a sudden that boss finally gets fired, and everybody's so relieved. And then somebody gets hired, and you're just sure they're going to be really nice, but somehow the role itself makes them tyrannical. And I remember reading this book, I think it was called Corruptible. It was this political scientist who was kind of analyzing, well, does power corrupt, or do corrupt people seek power? Or are corrupt leaders just simply the product of a system that needs them to be corrupt because it's kind of set up that way? Like, what are the feedback loops within the system that continue to support the creation of that? And I think where he landed was something like a mix of all three. But I think the important thing about understanding the system of it all in the human system and the karma of that is that it really isn't personal. You're playing your part in a system. It's like if you took it personal that a car has exhaust that comes out of it. You get what I'm saying? There's a system that's set up to do certain things that we like and certain things that we don't necessarily want to be exposed to. If you're asking, why do I react to this? That answer can be a bit more complicated because the mind is going to search for a really good causal explanation from the situations in your life, the most recent drama, and that's going to be why you think you're upset. But in reality, a lot of the arguments in our lives get started much, much earlier, from what I've seen, and sometimes even before this life. But what'll often happen is if you trace the origin and structure of specific interactions and specific circumstances when you were young, usually you will find your boss somewhere in there. They won't be called your boss because you won't be professional. Maybe they'll be a teacher. Maybe they'll be your mother. Maybe they'll be, fill in the blank. It's like something falls and your mother comes home and just, oh, what did you do? But it was the cat that knocked it over or something. And that can sometimes get locked into the nervous system or get locked even into the muscle tissue. So you start to like, oh wow, I get this tension in my shoulders every time I get accused of stuff that I didn't do. And then you find that these memories are being held all over the body. Because oftentimes what will happen is it's traceable to that moment of like something broke or something got knocked over that had nothing to do with you, but then you got scolded by your mother, scolded for something you didn't do. And so that hurt will have locked into the system in some capacity, and that emotion will have locked into the system. And then all of a sudden, this will just be the latest layer or the latest perpetuation of the same program within your system. But understand that I'm talking about two different things, right? If you're just talking about how the system works, you could just observe that. That's not negative or positive. That's just human systems have their own personality, they have their own agendas. It's like when people look at the justice system and they go, oh my God, what a miscarriage of justice. How could this happen in our system? And then you go, well, I think if we're really honest and brutal about it, some of this was designed into the system, and that's okay. And it's just a question of choices. If we keep going around saying, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, how could this happen in our perfect system? You're not going to realize that this emergent function of the system called people who are innocent go to prison is going to keep happening because it's set up that way. So there are systemic configurations within the human systems of our work and all the things that we do that do have a reality to them and have an impact on our experience in a very kind of direct way through communication and the way that people interact. But how you relate to it is very much informed by the argument that you're actually having with that person way back then. Like, it's the argument you're having not with your boss, but with your mother who falsely accused you of knocking over the jar. So it's important, like if you want to be less attached, you have to figure out what you're actually talking about. And it's almost never, and I'm telling you this from my own stupid experience, it is almost never to do with the story that I have in my head that where I'm really justified and it totally makes sense. And this boss said this to me, and that's why I'm angry. It's because my boss is an asshole, and that's the end of the story. That's really not how it actually works. And in order to clear it, I need to figure out what was configured into my system, the system of my consciousness that continues to run that argument. And it becomes a framing and a paradigm through which we interact with that consciousness that is in front of us, that other person. Most people in the world don't have conversations with anybody but themselves at any moment. It's a very rare gift for people to truly be able to listen and be present with the one in front of them without simply projecting whatever their karma is onto them. You can probably count the people you know on one hand that can really, really listen in a way where they're not thinking that they know you or they know what you're about, or they can just listen to your soul, and they listen from the soul in that way. Those people who can listen that way leave a mark. It's like a perfume, like a scent of jasmine or rose, like a gift that they're giving us repeatedly every time we sense it. The fact is, like, I can still remember what it was like to be listened to by John Roger. I can still remember that feeling when I would share with him and what that felt like. But most of the people that you interact with, and if you're really honest with yourself, if you really audit your own behavior and your own projection and your own consciousness, chances are you're bringing old arguments to the table with your current relationships. And I don't think there's anything wrong or right with that. I just go, if I want to have a graceful, loving experience, I would like to clean up, get my house in order, clean up all this mess, and then go have a conversation with the person. I don't have a lot of attachment to specific outcomes in most of my interactions. And that level of attachment or thinking that there's a good or bad way to have a conversation with somebody is often the level that these kinds of programming get in. But if we make the agenda first that I'm going to listen and be present, and that my listening and presence will be an expression of God's loving, then we can watch how the miracles unfold in the conversation. More often than not, I discover the most important aspect of a conversation is my loving or God's loving that expresses toward the other person and toward myself. So,
That,
yeah.
oh, I was just going to say that feels a little difficult to be able, it feels like I'm trying to do two things at the same time, like um I'm being accused, I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble. And so I understand what you're saying. I don't think I can work that off overnight. And I'm gonna have to
No,
deal with
no,
it
and
first thing
it, but
tomorrow.
yeah, no, it's one conversation at the time, at a time. It's one bit of awareness at the time, at a time. That's why I say you may need to work the process prior. So if you know you have a meeting with your boss, and that's going to be a meeting that involves accusation, or that's what you're projecting into it, you start doing the clearing and the forgiveness, and you start to identify the actual origin of your argument, which will likely have nothing to do with your boss. And you find that memory, and then you start to release it and heal it and love it and clear it, and you do the forgiveness you need to do with the person you're really arguing with. And then you just get to a place where there's just loving with the person, and then you walk into it. Now you still have muscle memory associated with defensiveness, so that's still going to come in there, and then you're going to flex because you have this notion of being in trouble, whatever that means. So you're going to have to retrain the lower self to not go into that one small step at a time, which is you catch yourself starting to go, oh, wow, my shoulders just went up. Oh, we're going to put them back down again. We're going to take in a deep breath. And there's no danger here. There's just two souls having a conversation. But it's baby steps. I'm not suggesting you got to walk in like a rishi and just know how to do all this. I'm just saying strategically you could identify the tension, the friction, the agenda, the stuff that's on the meeting, and you can do the clearing in advance. When I walk into a meeting, I would like there to be nothing but my loving that I'm bringing to that meeting. So that question, what are you bringing to the table, is so important in all of your interactions. Most of the conflicts we have are scripted by our own karma. It's like we hand somebody the script to our personal play, and oh, you're going to play the one who doesn't listen and blames me for everything, and I'll play the one who defends themselves for no reason. You see? But there's a
Oh,
point
oh
at
yeah.
which if you do the work outside the context, if you're committed to the notion that it's all happening inside of you and that you're not trying to win or be right or overtake them or be superior, and you really just want to get free and you authentically just want to get free, then all of a sudden it becomes very miraculous. You do the work in advance of the meeting, you walk into the meeting, and then all of a sudden you realize it was the best conversation you ever had. But it's not baby steps, and there's a temptation of the mind to compare it and say, well, am I getting better or am I getting worse? Or any part of the miracle of listening is when we are so present. It's like, this is the first and most important conversation I've ever had in my life. This is the first time I'm listening to you. And I think for people in my life, they know what me listening feels like and they love it. So they get really irritated when I'm not in that. It's because sometimes I am distracted and sometimes I do have stuff. So you set a very high standard in a sense, but all the magic happens when we just listen to each other. When we make that a safe place. And it may be that your boss is really, really scared or struggling or feeling like their boss is going to come down on them. And they may be reaching out for a kind of support, and the only vocabulary they were taught looks a lot like blame. But
Yeah,
that's just
that fits. That fits. It's the boss. The buck stops with her.
right.
But
So it's,
she's being threatened from the outside, being sued and all this other stuff. So I get what you're saying. She's afraid, like, oh my God, did we screw up, you know?
yeah. So it's like when I'm dealing with people like that inside of me, I just keep repeating, I love you. I'm going to stand with you. We're going to get through this. I'm not going anywhere. We're going to figure this out together. You see, it's that energy that you bring to the equation. So much of our life professionally is defined by roles. And I think people are craving to be people rather than their role. And they don't know how to ask for that. This person might say, I just need you to love me and support me and tell me you're not going to abandon me just because we're going to get sued. You know, you're not going to jump ship when things get difficult. And that's the humanity in the person. Most of the time, people don't see the person, they just see the role. Oh, that's the CEO, or oh, that's the president, or oh, that's the managing director. Whatever it is, it's, I've worked with C-level executives that were just craving to have a safe place to be. You know, here they are with all this power in a multi-billion-dollar company, and they want to have coffee with me just because they know it's a safe place. I'm not like, oh, that's cool. I get to have coffee with. I just saw somebody who's hurting and who needs a safe place. And so I assume that God put them there so that I could give them that. But it's a different way to relate to it because when we decide to be that lover, that compassionate being, the one that is advocating for the highest good of all concerned at all times, it's it's a different kind of life, I think.
Yeah, all that makes sense. And I'm already feeling relief just having that context. And you know, I can expect of myself to do my best when I do have to have this meeting and bring in the loving and be present and understand where she's coming from. Um, I don't know that I can get over my stuff overnight, but I can certainly, you know, just
You
the
can do some
context that
prep.
you put it in. Yeah, some prep.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, when you were talking about the being present, I was thinking like, you're there's nobody except for JR, John, and you. And it's like, wouldn't it be amazing if everyone could get into that space at least in intimate conversations, not necessarily everything, but anyway, thank you so much. I appreciate it, and I feel so much more relieved already. Thank you.
God bless you. Thank you. Melissa.
Hi. I can't even see myself, so there we go. So, just the last thing of what you were saying just brought up the tears in me. I have a safe place. I meant to have people that I can talk to, but I just needed a little extra boost right now.
Okay.
It has to do with my health. Um, I've been in a skilled nursing home for the last 2 months. And earlier, a year ago, I was in one for 3 months. And what's angering me right now is something that happened this afternoon. One of the things that's happened with me since I've been here is that I've had what's called orthostatic hypotension, which means when I stand up, I get dizzy, my blood pressure drops like about 30 points within a minute. And at home, I never have this, so it happened at the other place a little bit, and it's gotten worse here, and then it gets a little better, and then it gets worse. And this afternoon, I was like, what is going on? Like the medications that they gave me, I was in the hospital also over the weekend I was starting to feel a little pressure on my chest. It wasn't pain or anything, but just the whole fiasco of being there for 2 days. Everything's fine, which is great. But it's like all of a sudden I'm getting these medications that don't mean anything to me. It's like, what is that? Oh, it's this, the nurse will say, oh, it's this medication. It's like, but what is it for? I don't know. So I got the list of the medications that the hospital put me on. It's not even, the other thing has to do with the system that we have with, like all of my doctors are with Cedars-Sinai, but the ambulance when I went to the hospital would not take me there 2 months ago. They took me to a local hospital, which sucks. And there was no way around it. So I'm now I can't even talk to my doctors because I'm here in a skilled nursing facility with a hospital doctor that's in charge. So I started looking up I got a list of all the medications that I'm on, and I started looking every one of them up, on Google. 3 of the medications, the very first thing in terms of what the
Side effects.
the negative the way
Side effects.
What were you saying? Side effects. Thank you. That's one of the other things that's going on is that all this stuff is really like messing with my head, my brain, and trying to. So 3 of them, the first side effect is dizziness, lightheadedness, and blood pressure. And I'm like, what the F are they giving me? So, and there's a bunch of other ones that I'm looking at, and they're all kind of similar things. Like, why am I taking this? My doctor took me off this stuff like 6 months ago. They've got me on so much blood pressure medication. Heart medication, which I don't have a heart problem. It was just this pressure that I had, and everything. They took the scan and everything. Like everything looks is fine. And well, I was listening to the last conversation, and there were just some things that came up. It's like I've had so many years now of one health issue after another. And then I started scanning back, and it's like when I was young, I was really sick. Right now I'm just feeling like angry, and I am going to be meeting with the person who's in charge here with all the medications this afternoon, hopefully tonight. And I'm angry and I'm sad, and I'm on the other hand, it's like like my brother, my sister are both not well, really not well. I do have a couple really close friends that I talk to, and it's just really hard being here. I was planning on going home last week, and then the whole orthostatic stuff just kicked back up again. And I don't know if it's the medications, which I think it is.
Hmm.
It's like I really just want to go back to my house. But the problem is getting physically from the front street to my apartment. I have stairs that I have to maneuver. So I can't, I mean, I don't want to just take a chance of like being in the wheelchair and then, trying to stand up and walk up the stairs. Anyway, I don't know if you have any feedback or just suggestions or, and through all of this that I've been through the years, from when I was diagnosed with cancer, I still laugh. I find something to laugh about every single day, and it has changed my outlook on things. But this thing has just really gotten to me.
Yeah. Really pushed your buttons, huh?
Yeah, big time. Big time. And I look like shit on camera right now. There's one good thing through all this processes and the stuff of being the skilled nursing is this last year I've lost about 65 pounds.
Congratulations.
So
I'd like
I'll
to
be
lose 65 pounds.
careful what you ask for. I know.
Fair, fair. Well,
No, I mean, it's not the best way to do it, but
no, we'll add the caveat with grace and ease and joy. How about that?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had to get the laughter clears me.
Okay, well, what do you want to laugh about?
I have no idea.
Do you like jokes?
Uh, um, yeah, try one on me. Yeah, I like jokes. I like just the conversation and being able to put something funny in. It just comes from like out there. And all of a sudden there's just like this. I'm gonna come up with
Well,
weird stuff, but I'm open to
well,
what you have right now.
well, let me offer a few perspectives just to that because I think part of what you're dealing with might be atmospheric. And I don't mean the gas, I mean the energy of the place. So to some extent, a lot of people are like radios, right? They pick up the frequencies that are around, and it can really mess with people because even people who are very spiritually aware and kind of tracking certain things, they'll forget to check just the physical space. Like, is there ectoplasm in the space, or is there stuff in the space? So I personally, I mean, look, if I was in your situation, I think it's really cool that you're doing all this research and that you're advocating for yourself. I love that. I think that's very powerful. I'm also aware that from an attitude perspective, if I was to be taking any pill, I wouldn't put negative thoughts on the pill. I would just go, okay, this is a pill from God, and then I'd start blessing every molecule of it, and then I take it. And then I bless the water that I was drinking.
That's a great suggestion.
You kind of get what I'm saying. So, but I don't think it's an either or. I don't think you have to go, okay, I'm going to check my brain at the door. That's not what we were trying to do. We were trained to ask a lot of difficult questions and be a pain in the ass to people. That we're like the most effective pains in the ass spiritually, which is great because we don't check our brains at the door. We were told by the boss to check it out, and that's what we do. So
See, I'm
I
so messed
love
up.
that you're doing that.
I don't want to say messed up, but it's just like my brain's not working to where I'm even thinking to do that.
Yeah, but you're spiritually attuned, and that
Yeah,
attunement is much more powerful than your brain.
yeah. And I'm grateful for there's one thing I'm grateful for is that out of all the rooms here, there's 2 private rooms, and I got one of them. So
Hell yeah, that's awesome. I don't like being around people. That's perfect.
yeah.
Um, no, but what I was saying is, you have attunement, you have spiritual inner awareness, you have things that don't require your brain. And I understand that's easy to say, and if you're a very mental person or you have a lot of mental faculty, that might be a very uncomfortable proposition. Are you still there? It kind of froze a little bit. Are you there? Uh-oh. Maybe I'll get her phone number and call her after the talk or something. Somebody wants to text it to me. Oh, okay. Maybe she'll come back. I will go with Anna Sophia McCombs. Can't hear you though.
Yeah.
Hello.
All right. I'll wait until after.
Oh, you're back.
Yeah.
Hold on.
I don't know what
Hold on
happened.
hold on 1 second, Anna Sophia. Just one moment. I'll be back with you. Actually, Alyssa, you seem to have
Sure.
some internet challenges.
Well, that wouldn't
Wh
surprise. Okay.
yeah. Why don't you direct message me your phone number and I'll just call you and then that won't be an issue. I'll just call you
Okay.
later on, okay?
Okay,
Sound
that's
good?
great. Thank you. Yep,
Okay.
sounds great.
Anna Sophia, let's get back to you.
Okay. So it's been happening, like it's happened repeatedly. So
Okay.
whenever I go to this certain friend, it's always the same friend. Whenever I go to her house for a sleepover, and always in the evening, I get a stomach ache, and it's happened
Hmm.
quite, which means I've missed a lot of sleepovers. And I just, me and my mom, we had kind of a theory that it might be some kind of energy in there because as soon as I leave the house, like my stomach ache is gone. But just
Yeah.
like when I'm there, I always get a stomach ache. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that w people don't often give their basic selves as much credit as they could for how intuition can come from that area. So your body consciousness, your basic self can give you a lot of useful information. It can also warn you of energies that kind of aren't kosher for you or don't work for you. Or you may just be allergic to something. And I say that in more the energetic or universal sense. It's not really a bad or a good. So, like, for example, in your particular case, it would be like if there was a Davic form, meaning a nature spirit or something that is nearby the house that doesn't work for your basic self. Like say you have a history with that type of form. I know certain people who don't particularly like trolls. I think that's racist, but no, I'm kidding. But yeah, but they just, they there are certain earth frequencies and Davic forms that you may have a specific susceptibility to because of the history that your basic self had on the planet or because of your own sensitivities in terms of this life. Um, so in terms of getting a stomach ache, it could be any number of things. In the particular case you're talking about, it seems to be more of like Davic form related to be more direct on that. But there's a there's a fun little trick you could try just to see if you wanted to be really woo-woo and weird. If you take a little bit of malt vinegar and put it behind your ear, behind both ears, I've noticed that there's a lot of David forms that don't seem to like the frequency of malt vinegar for some reason.
Okay.
So you could try, or you could have a bottle that you carry with you in your bag that you don't open because it smells bad. Um, so that can work. But I think it's about being a scientist, right? It's about trying stuff out. Some people find that like bringing stones like a black tourmaline or like a different stone, just having it on your person can help.
Okay.
But understanding that your basic self and your body consciousness exists a lot energetically. So if there's a frequency in the land or in the environment I'm assuming it doesn't seem like you have a tremendous discomfort with the friend or the friend's family, like not socially.
Oh no, definitely. I absolutely love them. It's just, yeah, just whenever I
Yeah,
go.
yeah. So I didn't
And
see that. So sometimes the basic self will not like somebody in the house or a pet. That'll happen. That just doesn't seem to be the case in this case. In this case, it seems to be that there's like a fairly low, you could say like a lower frequency Davic form, that your body doesn't seem to like very much.
yeah.
So that yeah. So you can also experiment. Well, how woo-woo friendly is your friend?
Um,
Not so much. Yeah, because I was to say, you could plant like planting light columns at the house.
and I was
Um,
also thinking of doing like what you said when I came on here last time, the purple flame on my stomach. Because we
it's a
actually have,
bit you have sensitivity through the basic self in your energy, right? So the benefit of it is you can read people pretty well. Like you can walk into a room and you'll probably know who's got the negative agenda, who's got the something off. So like your spidey sense is really, really good. But what comes with that, that's what I was saying, basic self level. If you can tune into other basic selves, and the basic selves can give a tremendous amount of information. But when you're talking about that kind of sensitivity carries with it some other responsibilities called you may walk into a room and go, oh wow, I have to leave. Like, oh wow, that's not a good room for me. So it kind of goes both ways. Like it's kind of a superpower, meaning you're going to have more information than other people that you're consciously aware of, but you're also going to have more sensitivity. Think of it like this. If you had extremely good hearing, you would also be really sensitive to when they put on crappy country music.
yeah,
It would like you would run out of the room screaming, you know, because of the sensitivity, right? But like it carries with it a lot of benefits if you can learn to work with the basic self, meaning understanding the sensitivity level and then also just experimenting. And I've often found like the basic self can learn frequencies really well. So like there might be a frequency that's particularly healing or strengthening. Like I mentioned, holding a black tourmaline. For some people, it helps. Like having a specific crystal that they carry with them, it helps. But ultimately, energetically, we surpass the capacity of crystals. It's a useful reference point. But what I've noticed is the auric field and the basic self can learn the frequency of a crystal by scanning the crystalline structure and emulating that frequency. And then that becomes an opaqueness or a strengthener. So you can also like use visualization, or it's like almost like referencing from a groundedness, like see yourself as the mountain, and that'll start to ground you as well. But again, it's about experimenting and finding out what works. And a lot of it is about negotiation because when you have a sensitive basic self, you may want to go to that party that your basic self is saying, don't go to that party. So
yeah,
you need to figure out like, okay, can I go to that party for this amount of time and I'm going to wear tinfoil over my stomach? And then the basic self says, okay, under those conditions, I will support you doing that. And then you do it. But it's
yeah,
like acknowledging that, you know, it's not a defect, it's a feature, it's a capability, it's a gift. And at the same time, it's a responsibility because if you don't respect that, you know,
yeah,
very, very uncomfortable things will happen to you. Like in
yeah,
my case, I've just been on a very short leash spiritually my entire life. So I only go where the light is. Like I only go where there's light on something. I usually like I'll literally cancel things and not take meetings and do things if I don't see light on it. Because the times when I've betrayed that and not listened to it, I've been like knocked out in my bed, curled up in a little ball.
no, well,
So no, seriously. So it's like when you have sensitivity, there's in a sense a responsibility just to care for that,
yeah,
and having a negative story about it makes it really, really difficult. But if you can instead relate to it as a feature, a gift, a capability, a, a way that you can support people and love people, a way that you can have deeper understanding and awareness, if you have a positive story that you tell yourself about it, you will find that you have a very easy and harmonious relationship with the basic self. Because the
Yeah.
basic self's listening when you say, "Oh my God, why am I so sensitive?" The basic self's listening, going, "Look, I can't help it. What do you like? What do you want?" It's very frustrating. But if you can just say, "Oh, this is so cool. I have all this sensitivity. How can I make this work better? How can I make this more harmonious?" Then it becomes very enjoyable.
Yeah, and I actually have a sleepover coming up this week at this friend's house, so I'm gonna try like putting light on the house, like columns, just sending the light ahead, purple flame, all that, and I'll see if it works.
Yeah. Yeah. Experiment with different stuff. Experiment with different stuff, you know. And don't get discouraged if it doesn't work. You may go over there and be like, "Oh, that didn't work. Try something else."
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, stay light, stay joyful about it, stay curious about it. You know,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
Is it okay if I ask a question?
Sure. Yeah, go for it.
All right. So my question is, I'm curious to know your experience in terms of working with different selves. I was telling Anna Sophia, I had this dream with you. I don't know what the dream was about, Jeffrey, but it was a really good dream. And we were not supposed to make it to your talk today, and we made it right in the nick of time. So I'm just really grateful. So back to my question, in your experience working with like younger parts of the self, I just recently had this really sweet moment with a very young part of myself, kind of like making it current, and then realizing that other so the sense of lack of time and space.
Yeah.
Have you encountered that, and kind of bringing things current, but at the same time is like a different house, but it's also part of the family at the same time?
Yeah. So I've often, I would say that I have a very associative consciousness. And as I learn about different aspects of human expression, and something over here will inform something over there. I was reading this. Oh, yes, I was in a class taught by a Hasidic rabbi about the significance of Jerusalem and Jewish holidays, which is like, of course, I would be in that class. And then he was explaining how holidays work in Judaism. He said that time, he said that historically, the Jewish people are credited with bringing this linear notion of time rather than cyclical, which most other societies at that time had this notion of a cyclical time. But he said it's not actually accurate. It is one directional in that it's moving towards the Mashiach in their frame of reference, the Messiah, except he said it was like a corkscrew. And like a corkscrew, meaning when you celebrate Pesach, Passover, you're literally following Moses into the desert.
Mm.
When you celebrate Shavuot, you're literally waiting by the mountain for Moses to come down with the tablets. It's not, the notion of time is simultaneous. So
Mm.
even though there's a forward motion of the evolutionary process, there's a simultaneity of all time and all space. You could think of it like an overexposed photo paper or something, like all these different shapes and everything appearing all at once. We used we used terms like past life because it's very convenient with our notion of what now is.
Mm.
But if you were really to enter the consciousness of that, of what I'm talking about, now encompasses all of it simultaneously. Therefore, when you have something to clear or release, there is a simultaneity of, it's not, "Oh, back when I was 10 years old, this happened."
Mm.
It's happening right now, and therefore it can be healed right now. So when I work with people and I tell them, "Go there, bring Lord Jesus Christ and John Roger, and then heal that," and just heal it. I don't relate to it as going into the past. I relate to it as clearing it as a present sense reality. And then simultaneously, when it's cleared for all time. Therefore, it's like it never happened. And grace becomes a kind of forgetfulness where it's not that you're denied, like there's a kind of forgetfulness that's quite negative called suppression, where you don't remember it because you suppressed it. But I'm talking about where you forgot that there was anything there to forgive in the first place because there's so much loving, you can't really tell the difference and you don't remember what happened anyway. Like, who cares? There's so much loving here. I don't know what to do with all of that. But it happens simultaneously, so you can clear. I look at the Luciferian model as standing for the proposition that somehow we are subject to the traumas and the sins of our past. That all that we do is the result of what we have done, and we are to pay every debt down to every last farthing. And I see the Christ as standing for the proposition that we can be reborn in this moment completely new and completely with God and completely God. And that there's nothing to earn, nothing to free, nothing to justify, nothing to atone for. The debt was paid. And so the healing is available to all of us at all times, and all we need to do is claim it. Because from the consciousness of soul and spirit, there is no wound that is not healed. It is the healing and the completion of all. And the Christ that we all are is healing and completing all wounds as we speak. It's as forgiven as it happens. In Islam, they teach that Allah begs us to give us mercy, that we might become available to it. It's like Allah is waiting for us to ask for it because Allah is so grateful to give it to us. The forgiveness occurred before the action even took place. The debt was paid before the action even took place. And all we need to do is walk through the karma that we have and walk straight up to the heart of God. And the healing is available all the time. I see it over and over with people that I work with myself. And somebody sold everybody this bill of goods that were somehow to worship trauma. I think if there is an antichrist in the world, it is this newfound worship of trauma, that somehow we have to get ours, or things have to be made right, or justice by shooting somebody just because they lead a company. That, to me, is the Antichrist. It is the worship of past sin and the betrayal of the reality of infinite love and mercy that is available to all of us at all times.
Thank you so much. As you were talking, I just felt the corkscrew going down and down, and just till it landed to this movie that I watched recently about Mary, and there was this sense of complete surrendering. And I've heard you talk about surrendering before, and it's something that I aspire to, but I also know it. It is hard to explain. Like, I want to have it, but I also know it. So it's kind of like a weird disconnect. So thank you. That was thank you. That was
God
great.
bless you.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Thank you. Well, thank you all. God bless you. I love you. Peace be still. Blessings already are.
Thank you, Jeff.